What's your name, sir?
Morning Star, young man,
Morning Star
or Lucifer.
or Lucifer? Why do you have that name, sir? Do you think it's fair for people to doubt the possibility of Lucifer's incorporation?
I think it's fair that people can doubt anything and everything. In fact, it might be much more interesting if people actually started doubting everything instead of being certain about just a few things. In terms of polarity, if we consider God as the understanding of unity, being a spirit with everything that can be, has, and is elevated to the highest level, this spirit, being called God, would be opposing positive polarity. Our essential role, young man, is to truly play the part of negative polarity in order to bring a proper balance to all things.
So, these inherent polarities allow for significant contrast, thereby making this entire existence plausible and understandable?
Exactly, young man. So that opposition can exist. This universe is made up of principles of opposition, where there are those who like black and those who like white, and both believe that only one of the polarities is good, and we make them clash. And from that, they have the opportunity to show, deep down, whether they are capable of loving what opposes them, or if they only develop a deep selfishness, believing they alone possess any reason. The spirits of the Lord, who are the virtues of the heavens, like a vast army that moves at his command, spread out over the entire surface of the earth. Like shooting stars, they come to light the way and open the eyes of the blind. I tell you truly, the time has come when all things must be restored to their true meaning, to dispel the darkness, confound the proud, and glorify the righteous. The great voices of heaven resound like the sound of trumpets, and the choirs of angels gather together. Men, we invite you to the divine concert. Let your hands take up the lyre. Let your voices unite in sacred harmony, reaching out and resonating from one end of the universe to the other. Men, brothers whom we love, we are beside you. Love one another as well, and say from the depths of your hearts, by doing the will of the Father who is in heaven, Lord, Lord, and you will be able to enter the kingdom of heaven.
While all religions speak of the existence of a place different from this planet, where one can attain spiritual life, and therefore prepare human beings to go there, the spiritualist and controversial doctrine teaches the spirit to already live in a spiritual world within physical matter.
Good evening. Thank God.
Greetings.
Greetings.
At the request of the new one, this.
Yes, could you please take a seat, sir? Thank you very much. What is your name, sir?
Morning Star, sir,
Morning Star
or Lucifer.
or Lucifer? Why do you have that name, sir?
By assignment. When we first arrived here, sir, we were specifically tasked with bringing to this entire world the profound wisdom that truly emanates from the Heavenly Father and His divine will. Break time equals 0.5s/. That's why we received the title of Bearer of Light.
Of course, when people hear what you just said, they might confuse you with the fallen angel.
Sir, if there are any fallen angels, they're probably the ones who incarnated here. I've never incarnated, sir.
Yes, sir. When you came to this planet, where did you come from? And by whose order?
First, for you to understand the matter of order, you need to have an understanding of God. What is God, sir? The sum of all things. The manifestation of everything, whether perceptible to your senses or not. Within that profound and intricate meaning, it's entirely possible to truly understand that our very presence and coming here, in actual truth, has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with our own personal will or individual volition, but rather it is intrinsically connected with something akin to break time equals 0.5s/. You undoubtedly possess a specific and apt word for it, acclamation.
Yes, sir. For our understanding, what would be the difference between you and that character described in the Bible with the same name?
Show me a Bible that has a character described with that name. Now I fully understand your question, and it's much more directly aimed at a common stereotype that has been formed in this world, particularly within your Western societies. Because by the principle of polarity, there must be an antagonist. Because minds only work that way, being true to themselves. The good guy, and then they pick someone, the bad guy. Now, in the broader context of our profound work here, we could reasonably say that, in terms of fundamental polarity, if we consider the concept of God as the ultimate understanding of absolute unity, as a divine spirit with everything it can possibly possess, has ever possessed, and truly is, elevated to the very highest degree imaginable. This spirit, being called God, would be a positive polarity. Our role, young man, is to play the part of the negative polarity to bring balance to things.
So, these inherent polarities allow for a clear contrast, thereby making this entire existence truly plausible, wouldn't you say?
Exactly, young man. So that opposition can exist. This universe is made up of principles of opposition, where there are those who like black and those who like white, and both believe that only one of the polarities is good, and we make them clash. And from that, they have the opportunity to show internally whether they are capable of loving what opposes them, or if they only develop a deep selfishness, believing they alone possess any reason.
Do you think it's legitimate for people to doubt the possibility of Lucifer's incorporation?
I think it's legitimate for people to doubt absolutely anything. In fact, it might be much more interesting if people actually started doubting everything instead of being certain about a few things.
It would be more interesting for people to start doubting everything rather than being sure of just a few things.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, because if it's truly legitimate and people still doubt, we absolutely take that as something very good for us. And supposedly, the Spirit should see this as something negative, because if you deliver a message, you especially, with that name, because that's who you are, you see an advantage in using that name. And we, supposedly, understand that a lot of people will put up a barrier to keep themselves from really hearing what's being delivered.
Perfect.
So even so, do you use that name knowing our limitations?
The goal of every spirit manifested before this world, and especially in the times this world is living through, is to create a test, to give a real opportunity for people to love, or at the very least, to allow others the right to be free. Whatever kind of freedom it is, even if it's a freedom that goes against what I think is good. So, young man, given this understanding, we could use countless names, because according to your history, we've already had many names, but we always look for those that stir things up, and stir them up a lot. So that people are not overly comfortable, so that they actually have a genuine chance to deeply reflect, to truly meditate, and to fully realize that perhaps not every single story they've ever heard completely matches the actual reality that is directly in front of them. Break time equals 0.5s/.
Is it possible for the one we refer to as the fallen angel, because of his great evolution, to incorporate into a human being without, as they say, frying him?
First of all, young man, great evolution is your own interpretation, because in the universe there is no better or worse, no greater or lesser. There is only a great, perfect will that everyone is equal, and no one looks at each other in any other way. But based on your understanding of this, or rather, based on the understanding you're seeking with your question, and for those who will hear what we're saying here now. No, young man. And we can't say that we incorporate as you or those watching this understand it, but we can say that we radiate ourselves, because there is an affinity with the medium. So, in this context, we can call it much more of an objective irradiation.
That's it. What is important for us to know today about your story?
Young man, regarding my story, or anyone else's, what really matters is that you are happy. I'm just another one who comes here simply to fulfill my duty. Obedient and faithful to my Father's will, to the will of the universe. I'm just here doing my part within what I can, nothing more than that. Now, if you want to know a bit of the story, what I can tell you is that here, specifically on this orb, when there was nothing here, we arrived. With the goal of developing the primitive capacity of those beings that were just beginning to emerge here, so that they could bring spirits with a single purpose at that time, to develop a new planet of trials and regeneration. Now, after 8,000 years of this process, and a time that you experience as an illusion, we have entered a new phase, and our mission has been to bring understanding to all of you. Clarity. of your bad tendencies, so to speak, but in the sense that you are quite developing your individualism. So, we thoughtfully allowed your profound arrogance, your overwhelming overconfidence, and your undeniable recklessness to truly run completely free, because the deeply ingrained, proud selfishness you inherently carried within your very essence was indeed far greater, so that through your significant crossroads, you would genuinely have the perfect opportunity to consciously choose. Deep within your true essence, the boundless love you are truly capable of expressing and embodying.
When you refer to yourself, you say we. So, would Lucifer be a consciousness, or a legion, or what exactly?
You could say yes, a state of consciousness. But speaking specifically of the one who manifests here in this vessel, given the mysticism that has developed in this country, which now takes hold and prevails, you call it Umbanda. There, you recognize us as Exu, but we are not Exu. We only present ourselves that way. In truth, we are an archangel, one of the 7 archangels of this solar system. So, to answer you, when I say we, it's because no one does anything alone, my friend. Not me, not anyone. So we express ourselves as we, because I respect and love all those who are by our side very much.
Of course. So you just referred to Archangel as a group consciousness that represents, like, a name, a banner, a purpose.
You've even talked to other us before, my friend. When you mentioned the command of lucidity of the universe, that friend of yours.
Yes, I think it's Lucia.
That's right.
There you go. Of course I do. Do you work within a hierarchy? And if so, who would be your direct superior?
God. God is the direct superior of every and any free spirit. Within your concept of hierarchy, not ours. There is no hierarchy, but there is, how can I put it, a set of tasks that falls to each one according to their ability, we could say. So, if within what you understand as hierarchy is the work role that each one has, we could say there is a certain hierarchy, but this hierarchy doesn't place anyone above another.
Yes. And what is your specialty within this hierarchy? And what was the most interesting thing that those of higher hierarchy taught you?
Our primary goal here, sir, is to bring absolute clarity, to truly give everyone who possesses ears to hear and lips that can speak to them effectively. And what I have learned from my superiors is that no matter how much you actually do, God always truly deserves even more. Break time equals 0.5s/.
Of course. When you say, no matter what you do, God always deserves more, where did he earn that deserving? And what happens if he doesn't have more?
First of all, sir, God doesn't achieve, God is. And second, everything emanates from God. Since God is everything and all things, there is no way to be greater. There is nothing superior. But we could also say that there is nothing inferior, because it is already everything. So the universe, sir. We do not work for ourselves, sir. We always work for the good of the whole, always for the good of God, with God being a concept that is familiar to you, because in other places or worlds, if you believe in that, there are other names given to the same set or the same things.
Right. What would be the difference between sincere devotion and fanaticism?
The heart, sir. Sincere devotion doesn't demand anything. Sincere devotion doesn't ask anyone for sacrifice. Sincere devotion only sacrifices itself if it feels that's what it should do. Sincere devotion only brings smiles.
Only brings
Smiles.
smiles. Yes, sir. How does a person truly know that they are not being fanatical while they genuinely believe they are being a sincere and devoted follower?
By following your heart, and by the fruit the tree is known. So if in your life, without anything in life having to change, everything becomes clearer, more peaceful, more understanding, more lucid. Maybe you're talking about a seed that has borne fruit in relation to your faith.
Yes, sir. What is the meaning of these words, star, and then this phrase, of the morning, in your name specifically? What is that meant to communicate?
They represent a group of spirits, you could say. I represent them because I got here first. Venus, young man. Venus. You've talked to the other one, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
You even had something with him.
Oh,
The reincorporated.
yes, yes. So, what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning and go to work? In our terms, right?
The profound love that truly radiates throughout the entire universe makes it so that we don't even have a genuine concept of work, because it's simply an ever deeper, more expansive unfolding of pure love.
Yes. What spiritual form do you wear, and why that one instead of another?
It depends, young man. A spirit has no form, so it can present itself in any way, young man. Some might say they see me as tall, with fair skin and red hair, maybe blue eyes. But others might see other forms, even other genders, because depending on the culture that's developed, we will manifest in the way that best fits that culture's expectations. So today, young man, most of the time it's like this.
Yes, sir. Have you ever had to obey in order to progress?
All the time, young man. Because I respect the free will of every being in this universe. So yes, young man. In fact, we work based on a simple concept. Be nothing, expect nothing, want nothing, just serve.
Be nothing, expect nothing, want nothing, just serve.
That's right, young man. Exactly.
Of course. So can we say that free will exists?
Of course, young man. Now, what you call free will might not be the same as someone else's idea of free will. Each being has a different concept of free will, and it's up to us to respect each one of them.
Yes, sir. So, can I choose the specific question that I am going to ask you next time, perhaps? Or is it already written?
You already chose it before you were born, young man.
Okay.
Now, you can choose before you incarnate, yes. So, yes, your free will was exercised. Although, in this case, the choice wasn't just yours, it was made by a group.
Ah,
Or do you think the questions that come to you are really yours?
yeah, so. Yes, sir. Of course. When people hear this, a lot of them tend to get quite upset because they feel like mere puppets in God's hands. They want to be truly independent, or at the very least, they want to fight for the status of being completely independent. Break time equals 0.5s/. How do you see this?
There are two answers to that, depending on two different ways of understanding it. From our perspective, looking at you, so to speak, from the outside in, yes, and our understanding, you are nothing more than puppets moved by God's will, whatever that will may be, according to the type of trial chosen before incarnating. Now, young man, if those who are within the orb, let's put it that way, want to believe that they have free will, anything at all, we strongly defend everyone's freedom. So let them believe, young man. In fact, if possible, let them doubt everything we've said. There is no problem with that. But perhaps, just perhaps, if one of those individuals listening attentively to us allows themselves to truly develop some profound clarity within their own understanding, all of this effort has already been entirely worth it. We don't fight for numbers, we work for quality.
Right? We'll come back to this topic later, but first, please explain to us, what are the symptoms of lucidity?
From a human perspective, madness. It's the one who becomes misunderstood by everyone, but it's also the one who lives with a smile on their face for no reason at all. Even if they have a life that, in the eyes of others, seems miserable, they still look up, whether it's sunny or raining, and say, "How wonderful all of this is." That might be the lucid one.
That might be,
The lucid one, sir.
of course. What are the consequences of lucidity?
The profound possibility of no longer inflicting suffering upon yourself, of truly understanding that the entire whole is much, much greater than any single individuality, and that from that point, there is no longer an I, there is only a we that truly matters.
Of course. Why is it often so incredibly hard for us to truly consider the collective we, especially when the specific car we choose to drive says so very much about the individual I?
Because that's the work. That's what you set out to do and come here for. And everything that happens to you, everything that befalls you, develop love for God above yourself. Show God that you are already like this. But, in truth, God already understands you. So maybe it's much more about showing yourself your real situation.
Of course, what is the real situation of the incarnated man?
From whose point of view, young man?
From the point of view of the purpose of incarnation.
He is working. And we can confidently say that in this significant period, with unwavering dedication, even though you may genuinely think that, especially in this vibrant nation you proudly call Brazil, you might feel everything is in a state of utter mess, but it is precisely from such apparent chaos that true clarity and profound understanding are ultimately born. Because things have to get much worse before they get better. In the spiritual sense.
Of course, absolutely indeed. Is time truly linear, or is it more complex?
From whose point of view, young man? From the incarnate or the discarnate? Or from the one who no longer even exists in your universe?
So, does the individual's point of view truly determine what is objectively true and what isn't?
Of course, young man. To each according to their deeds. How can you expect someone who lacks knowledge to know about something? That would be quite ignorant, wouldn't it? So we can say that, from the point of view of the incarnated, it is linear. From the point of view of the spirit who is incarnating, given their understanding of the need for development and testing, it can be circular, young man. Now, from the perspective of those who no longer even share the concept of the universe, time doesn't exist.
Right? If what I currently do is entirely limited to my own personal point of view and my individual interpretation of the broader reality, then there is absolutely no justifiable reason to truly blame myself for not having actually done what I genuinely did not think was entirely right or appropriate to do at that particular time.
Perfect. By the way, young man, if you believe in God's omnipotence, saying that you can blame yourself for having done or not done something is absurd.
Go ahead.
If the only truly powerful being is God, how could you do or not do something unless it is God Himself making it happen?
How could you do anything without that thing, as it is being done, before or after, being nothing more than God exercising His let it be?
That's right, young man. Could you do something that God doesn't want you to do?
No, sir.
So, young man, the important lesson here is this. Please don't blame yourself in any way whatsoever, and certainly don't put yourself down for any particular reason at all. Instead, try to truly love the entire situation, whether you personally did it or not, because that's completely irrelevant. Because whatever it is, it's the manifestation of something much greater than you can imagine.
So let's talk about a controversial topic then.
Great, young man.
If someone commits suicide, obviously they did it because they thought it was the right thing to do, even knowing it was wrong. They thought they did it, went through with it, thought it was right.
What is right for you might be wrong for someone else, and we have no problem with that. So if for them it's right, why are you saying or thinking that it's wrong?
Yes. Yeah, but let's put it this way, within her own perspective, she thought it was wrong, but in the end she did it because she thought it was right, otherwise she wouldn't have done it.
Right.
So, is it the fact that she blames herself that makes her vibration heavy enough to share in that umbral environment, for example?
If you believe in the umbral, yes. If she believes in the umbral or hell, or whatever name people want to give it, then yes, man. It's the guilt. Because if she understood that this was nothing more than a type of trial chosen by the Spirit itself, and that there's really no problem, after all, if you believe in reincarnation, you go now, you come back soon. What's the problem with that? But maybe this is just a matter called attachment.
Of course, so it's not the action that's the crime, but the self-condemnation.
Exactly, man. Who are you condemning? Really?
Uh.
Who, man? Who? If you blame yourself, who is this person who thinks they're guilty really condemning? God, man.
Of course, the primary cause of all things.
Great, man. Something you already know well.
So,
There are no culprits, no victims, and no innocents. There's only a process that unfolds and has one purpose: to give everyone the opportunity to express love, no matter the aspect or circumstance that presents itself.
so really, the fundamental reality is a profound school of self-knowledge and understanding.
Reality, man. First, you have to understand what you mean by reality. Is that what you all consider life to be?
Yes.
Then yes, we can say that your understanding of what you call life, yes, man. It's about being a total opportunity at every moment to develop, to express love. But that has nothing to do with reality. Reality is something else.
Is pain merely just an inherent attribute of the incarnate being, or something more profound?
We can say, man, that depending on your understanding of pain, if it's physical pain, yes. Physical pain is an attribute only of those who are incarnated. Now, there's also emotional pain. That one, even after disincarnating, some spirits can carry with them.
Yes.
Depending on your level of awareness.
What is the origin of suffering?
In that sense, man, selfishness.
Selfishness.
Why, man, selfishness? Because selfishness separates you from the whole.
Selfishness segregates us from the whole, from everything.
That's right.
Of course.
It's not being able to share in the reality of the whole. That's why, here, people live in insertions of dreams. And I say dreams just because it's contextual. Why, man, I'm talking about dreams here. This is just my own conception, not ours, because not everyone shares this same view. So, at this moment, I say, because man, being inserted here can't affect the spirits that they are. So, this is just a proposed idea, a conceptual framework, so that they can truly develop in love, and an even freer, more expansive love, giving full and complete freedom to the other individual.
If everything is written, our actions, is it also written how we feel about what happens? And does it make a difference whether it is or isn't?
Great, man. Your actions, yes, all of them are, let's say, coordinated according to what you are going to feel. But God takes into account much more the intention than what actually happens. Yes, according to what you intend or how you express yourself emotionally. Yes, things can be taken to many different levels, depending on how you express your feelings.
Of course.
Do you want an example of that?
Go ahead.
For example, if you have to do a task, like you were saying, in the pursuit of new knowledge, a study to really understand something. From the moment you gain this new knowledge, you are able to do a different kind of work. From that, you create new opportunities. But if, in your emotional choice, you still choose to take your time to reach that knowledge and keep living in a cycle within your chosen type of trial, you will keep experiencing that same kind of trial until, emotionally, you decide on something different. New trial, new options.
A good deed washes away a multitude of sins.
Maybe not.
How would you explain that statement?
Maybe just a good intention washes away a multitude of sins, young man. Now, when it truly comes to what we can genuinely call a good deed, if it is indeed filled with good intention and a truly free heart, then it is considered a virtuous act. The example that just one person can set can move a whole crowd. So, in that sense, yes, a good deed can move a multitude away from their sins.
What exactly is it that leads a person to achieve a state of lucidity? Religion or no religion?
In our understanding, young man, religion only limits you because, in truth, people do not seek the core that drives religions, but only seek interpretations of someone's interpretation who, for some reason, at some point, went through some kind of trial and, in that trial, sought control in some way. And from that, your choices are based on the fact that it's easier to follow someone, because deep down you think that if you follow, you're not responsible for what happens, when in reality everyone is responsible for themselves. Do you understand?
Yes, but I'd like you to explain the same thing in another way. Please.
Religion, as it manifests today, according to the intentions placed upon this sphere and the type of trial chosen, makes everyone into sheep. And do you know what the fate of every sheep is, young man? Slaughter. But it's not slaughter in the sense of destroying flesh or serving as food for another. It's slaughter in the sense of your ability to develop love being cut off. Because if you surrender to someone else's idea and don't develop your own sense of love, what kind of love have you actually developed? It's something someone else said, not something that comes from within yourself.
If it was truly written that I would inevitably go through specific points such as a 2, B6, C4, D8, and so on, then at each and every one of those particular points, there was indeed a significant trial for me. Was the purpose of that trial for me to refine my spirit so I could recognize the light it carries?
Yes, manifesting Lucifers at each one. Now, we need to make a small, let's say, correction regarding the way you expressed yourself. From the moment you reach point A2, you have a whole set of B points, depending on the emotional choice you make. You see?
Yes.
So, you're not going to reach point B6, my friend. Depending on what you feel, you'll reach point B1 or point B1 million. And from there, There's a whole new generation of sea points, like a big tangle, because all of this was already drawn out beforehand. So, according to the new feeling, a new manifestation of love, there's a new possibility. Do you understand the difference?
Yes.
So it's not a linear, predetermined path. It's a path that can twist and turn a lot, but it will reach the same point.
So what truly makes humanity rebellious when they assert that absolutely everything is already written is that they fundamentally do not fully comprehend or grasp God's infinite and boundless intelligence.
Exactly. Supreme intelligence of the universe, right, my friend? But it is written. They read it, but they don't really get what's being said.
Yes, of course. True. In other words, it's written that, if you went through a 2, developed a kind of feeling a 3, you already move on to B4.
Exactly, my friend.
Is it?
Perfect.
If you haven't developed it, you'll stay at B3 until you do.
That's right, perfect. Because otherwise, it wouldn't be each according to their own deeds.
Really? What? So obviously, all the possibilities are written down,
And taken into account.
and the actions are written down too.
Exactly, that's it. The question is how they're going to feel from the point where they are. With what life brings you.
Look, today you brought something that helped add to the search of our flesh and soul.
Coincidence, my friend.
Because we knew that what was written is what happened. But we didn't fully consider that from a 1 to a infinity, each and every single emanation of A has a predefined circumstance, a predetermined set of trials, specific actions, and precise words that are already written down and established.
Exactly. You underestimate God.
Oh my, a lot. Were you ever like that?
No, my friend. Not in this universe. In another universe, we went through an experience that might be similar to what you call incarnation.
What do you truly believe is the fundamental cause of this pervasive and challenging state of difficulty that we currently experience, particularly in the profound act of genuinely accepting and embracing others as we would ourselves, with all their unique qualities and perspectives?
Selfish, arrogant individualism.
Selfish, arrogant individualism. For those who don't understand what you meant by those 3 words, could you explain?
It's that, in truth, one thinks they are God and doesn't see God in the other. So, individualistic, selfish, arrogant, because they don't understand that the other is nothing more than themselves. Just manifested in a different way.
Wasn't it necessary for us to think this way for this reality to exist?
That's what is proposed by being here. To reach a point of developing clarity where you understand the other as yourself. Nothing more than that.
Would it be possible for us to live at this particular level of density if we knew who we really are?
No. From the moment you have full clarity about who you really are, there's no reason to remain here in this illusion anymore.
If this reality was created, does that mean it was good?
Necessary. So that you can fulfill your development as intended.
So the lowest level of density is neither good nor bad.
It's according to each one's needs. There is no good or bad, pleasant or unpleasant, right or wrong. There is only what each person is, and everyone, regardless of how or what they may manifest, is worthy of the greatest love imaginable. To practice. Good and bad are human things.
Someone comes up to you and says, "But I don't like being here. I don't like it. I feel out of place on the wrong planet. I don't like the way things happen here. I didn't give permission for these laws to have the power they have over me. I don't like being trapped in a body. And this woman, she's upset. She comes up to you and says, like, I don't want to stay here anymore. Why am I here? Who's keeping me here against my will?" What would you say?
Look, maybe we have some bad news to give you, that there's not much you can do. So, I'll use an expression you have here. Just relax and enjoy it, because that's all you can do.
Of course, do you think her rebellion is legitimate?
Of course, she has every right to express herself however she sees fit. But she will also have to bear all the consequences of that expression. We're not here to judge. We're here to welcome everyone as they are.
Right. Just like Master Yoda told Anakin Skywalker, "You're going into the cave." And he goes, "What am I going to find there? What you take with you in there."
Exactly. That's a good analogy. When they arrive here, what they find is what they already carry within themselves. And from there, they have the chance to develop something, maybe something different. And then they get the opportunity to leave here different from how they came in.
So when she says, "I feel bad because I don't want to be here," actually,
She feels bad because she decided that being here is bad. No, sir, she feels bad because she doesn't want to face the reality of who she really is, since it shows what they are, what they need to.
work on in themselves. So you could say it's like an out of tune instrument. Yeah, when a human being isn't centered, they feel bad, and their center is God, is peace.
You could even say that the spirit is like that. That's why it comes to seek proof while human. Just like an instrument. To harmonize with God. That's why I said that those who are here segregated themselves here, because they couldn't coexist freely with the
Free spirits, it's like playing a discordant note with. Exactly, man. The ensemble. And
then there's no affinity with that. Out of affinity, they come to seek this so they can reach the harmony of the
orchestra. Right. And today, for us to play an instrument, we need to practice. Exactly, man. That practice and the teacher would be, those practices and the teachers would be as one.
at once our trials, the practice, yes. But the teacher, who is the teacher, really man? Since we're talking here about an introspective development, about the emanation of lucidity from oneself, about a sense of light that already exists in the spirit, who is the teacher if not the spirit itself? Since it's the spirit that develops its own trial and the whole path it comes to walk.
And then someone in the back of the class raises their hand and says, "Mr. Lucifer, hold on. So, do I have to accept everything with my head down?" No, you don't have to accept anything. But
How many options do you have from the moment you get here? As the book says, the book of spirits. Brothers, the spirit of truth will say that the type of trial chosen is by the spirit. Because when they get here, incarnate, they have other values that aren't those of the spirit. Right. And the earth will get better when people become good. It's already getting better, but being good is your own thing, kid. The earth will be wonderful when it doesn't even exist anymore. When? When it doesn't even exist anymore. Then there won't be any need for this, because there won't be anyone left to attend the Lyceum, because everyone will already be graduated. Right? When Jesus said, good, there's only one, and that's God. It's my Father who is in heaven. How should we understand that? Understand that everything, since God is, everything wonderful, including yourself. Not the you that chose an ego, you're just an instrument of testing, but you yourself are the manifestation of perfection, the spirit that manifests the ego.
How should we understand this saying? Happiness is not of this world, because here is a place and a field of trials,
Of weeping and gnashing of teeth. Here is the place where everyone is subjected to the proposal of suffering, and from suffering to develop love. And when they develop the manifestation of that love, there is no longer a need to be here. So this isn't the place to be happy. It's the place to develop the possibility of real happiness.
which happens in a realm very different from this one. A spirit once told me that human beings don't have to evolve, don't have to develop, don't have to go from point 1 to 10 and reach the level of evolution. They just have to brush off the dust that's on them.
Which keeps them from seeing. We should say that we agree with this spirit. Of course, especially because
It's all part of this, right, man? Yes. So, wouldn't it be a mistake for US to venture into development on the path of evolution and ascension when this could happen?
in the blink of an eye? The thing is, man, there would only be a mistake if God made a mistake. Since God is the supreme intelligence of the universe, there's no way he could be mistaken. Things happen according to the needs of each person who embarks on this process. So yes, man, for some it might be, as you call it, a snap of the fingers, but others need other paths, other possibilities from those infinite ones, BS, CS, DS, and ES. From there, this life you perceive develops. That's why all of this exists. So, yes, man, it's possible that, as you will understand, people in caves could achieve their spiritual elevation, their nirvana, whatever you want to call enlightenment, whatever name you want to give it. It's possible because it's not something external and manifest, it's something developed and reached internally. Now, if you need a stone or a spaceship for that, it's a matter of each person's individual need. It's not our place to question that. Our role is simply to serve the greater purpose, which is the full development
Of love. When we say that it's a matter of each and every person's individual need, we are talking
on the level of personality, not essence. Exactly. According to the type of trial chosen. And based on what you were going to ask, man, exactly. Yes. There is a need for scientific and human development so that new trials can take place in different ways, because spirits need this difference in order to develop, or to be able to reintegrate into the levels.
So the need of the personality is justified. Yes, man, it's part of the type of trial chosen, and it is the trigger and origin of new.
future trials. Exactly. Or the occurrence of new karma. How would you define karma? We could say it's the inheritance you give yourself based on what you've built. What you build from within yourself. That's it, man. That's the simplest way. Karma is the creation of habits that you choose to have and that you come here for, and you take on this work to show that you don't. You no longer have that habit. What is the main karma to be worked on in this world, man, as we've already discussed here? Individualistic selfishness. So, everyone who incarnates here in some way, even if they're here on a mission, takes the opportunity to come here and purify themselves of whatever individualism still remains. Of course.
We're close to final minutes of first meeting. I'd like to know.
If you could stay for another session. Yes, man, there is. We can have another meeting. But it can't be today, man, in your time. Right. It can be on the next day, man. There you go. So, I will stay another 5 minutes with you. All right, man, in truth, we've known each other for a long time. How long? Since your conception as a being. You are a spirit, your spirit is. An older spirit than mine. If you believe in chronological time, you could say yes, but maybe I just have a different, more expansive perception. Yeah, man, let's say.
We see the picture from a couple of steps further back. Would it be possible for you to be incarnated like I am?
Am today? Not anymore, man. What would stop you? I no longer have the ability to manifest in that way. I can't even incorporate anymore, as you commonly believe. Incorporation to be. I can only radiate myself as a manifestation. When we met.
So what exactly led to that significant event happening? It was truly the profound will of the entire universe. And from that, humanity, or rather man, began to truly understand and evolve.
A continuous succession of truly good feelings. That may be culminated in this very moment. How do you feel here? I'm good. That's it, man. Almost like I'm part of it. Great, man.
What do you mean? Almost part of it? In other words, not resisting the flow. Exactly, man.
Without running into difficulties. Not even in the channeling they have with you. They? Yes. Them. They who? Those who work with you. Of course, in this mission-driven purpose that you carry.
So be it. Thank you very much, So, in your final words now, where do you want to go with all this? With all this, your investment of energy, time, dedication to the people of Earth, to the disincarnated people, with all the clarity you bring. Me, man, I don't have any goal for myself.
Just that, if I can be one more who helps so that whoever it may be can develop and express their love. That's all the reward I could wish for, and it's much more than anything I could expect here. From this world, man, I don't expect anything. I just serve.
Do you understand the difference? Yes, you could say that you have already freed yourself. Maybe you were never bound by the Buddha's 5 aggregates. We've already been through man.
Within incarnation, we've been through that. Other universes. A life like that. But back in that situation, especially because if we hadn't experienced that conceptually, how could we set an example or speak in a way that to have any kind of authority over someone who's going through something you don't know about? So, I've already been through that situation. It's just that those who, like me and some of us who are truly manifest here, we didn't actually need to go through more than just a simple passage through that particular experience. But that's not necessarily better or worse. It's absolutely nothing at all.
You understand? Yes. Do you think our essence should be focused on the willingness to free ourselves from all this, or to find ourselves in unity
with God? From the moment you find yourself, none of this exists for you anymore. From the moment you start, when each one starts to truly manifest their own capacity, for lucidity or for love, none of this will make any sense anymore. And you'll just be another crazy person walking
through these streets, another crazy person free from all of this. A lot of people in Hare Krishna, they don't eat food with garlic. Their diet is specific and they recite many mantras. And just now we were talking about tuning the instrument, but you can't help but notice that this is just action, right? If the essence
doesn't dive into it to escape from a reality. Exactly, man. Now, maybe it's that very test for those who are willing to do this until at some point they awaken to a new test. We're not here to make any kind of judgment because that's not our place. It's not our goal. So, if for them at that moment, that's what they need, so be it. Now, there are others who seek more, who are more committed to the idea of surrendering to their trials. Let it be that way too. Understand that to each, according to their need at that moment. Of course.
But again, without judgment. Right, young man? Does this by any chance lead to a way of, for example, moving from B2 to B4 and, in a different way, experiencing life? Could I get to know myself more easily?
Well, young man, that depends on what you mean by getting to know yourself more easily. Some people are able to take that introspective dive through the most pure and simple meditation, which is that snap of the fingers you mentioned earlier, but there are others who need to go through the grind of the journey. We're here to help both kinds of people. Of course. And
in this matter, much of it comes from our conditioning to find the easiest way.
Exactly. There's no easy way. If it's too easy, be careful. And also,
thinking that just because it's clean, it's the best, forgetting that the lotus flower grew out of the mud.
Exactly, young man. And maybe if a little while ago, in your own sense of time, you had come across the light of the world, you wouldn't have stayed by its side because it stank.
That's right. Okay then. So thank God. Thank you very much for this opportunity to study with. Sir, on this day, what would be your final message for this first meeting? What can we say?
To you or to anyone else is this: be yourselves. Don't play roles. Don't give power to your own hypocrisy. Be happy. It doesn't matter what happens or what might come next. Be happy now, because now is the only moment you have to fulfill yourself to express
your clarity. Express yourself now. That's it, young man. So be it. Last question. Are you happy?
Young man, in the way that we exist.
In this moment, there is only pure happiness. So let it truly be. Thank God for this blessing. Thank you very, very much for everything.
All right, my dear young man. All right, thank you very, very much indeed. Is there anything else you might possibly want or require today? That's absolutely all. My sincere gratitude and appreciation. We work with a small concept, to be nothing. Expect nothing, want nothing.
Just serve. Be nothing, expect nothing, want nothing, just serve. That's it, young man. That's it. But it's
from chaos that clarity is born, because things have to get much worse before they get better. In the spiritual sense. Of course, a good deed can move a crowd away from their sins. There are no guilty ones. There are no victims nor innocents. Just a process that unfolds and has the purpose of giving each one the opportunity to express love, no matter the aspect or circumstance in which it is shown.
so. Reality is the school of self-knowledge. Reality, young man, you must
First, understand what you call reality. Is that what you mean by life? Yes. Then, yes, we can say that your understanding regarding what you call life. Yes, young man, this is the complete opportunity at every moment to develop, to express love. Now, that has nothing to do with reality. Reality is something else.